Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar, Creating Music with the Spatial Synth. I'm Catarina from Sound Particles, broadcasting from Portugal, Iria. Welcome. Today with me, I have Tony Joy, our amazing colleague. He's broadcasting from LA, so it's morning for him. And at the backstage, we have João Franco, our amazing engineer, and Dan from Best Service. They will be answering all your questions, so feel free to drop them all at our private chat, okay? I don't want to take too much time, so basically at the end of this event, I will announce the big winner of our giveaway, SkyDust 3D completely free, and I will give you a special discount code only for you, our attendees, and that's it. So without further delays, Tony Joy, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Very excited to share what we've been doing here at Sound Particles and at Bus Service together, right, as a collaboration. So, as you might know, some of you might know about Sound Particles, some of you might not. So, a quick overview. We are known for our flagship Sound Particle software, which is a CGI-like software for sound design. Even if you have not heard about the software, you have heard it in action if you've seen any of these movies, right? And we very recently, little less than 2 weeks ago, released our very first synthesizer, which has our 3D engine built in. And without spending more time talking, I'm going to hit play and play the session I have and then discuss the synth right after. So here we go. Here we go. That was pretty cool, right? So what did I just do here? So I have a very small session, right, that I just created in Pro Tools, which is, my DAW of choice for the time being. And what I have done here is I'm actually using our 3D synth in a multiple different formats. As you can see, I have a beat summing folder, which has a kick, a hi-hat, snare in stereo. Then I have something spatial in a 7.0. And in the melody folder, I have again different widths of the instrument. So how was this even possible? That's because SkyDust is a synth that has a 3D engine built in. So remember, I'm not using any other spatial software. I'm not using a Dolby Atmos renderer. We do support Dolby Atmos, but the fact is this instrument is instantiated as an instrument in multi-channel if I wanted to. So of course you can create the synth in a stereo instance like this, right? Or you can create the synth in a 702 instance if you wanted to, or 712. In fact, we support a little over 30 different formats depending on which DAW you're using, which format you're working in. The core concept is that we want you as an artist to focus on art and create music, and we worry about technology. Right, so from the very first note you play, you get to create something in 3D like this. Pretty amazing, right? So that's the deep note sound, of course. And why is it different than taking the deep note, I don't know, stereo mix or 5-1 mix, and then panning it? The difference is when you pan a sound like that, when you try to place it in space, let it be stereo or 5-1, you are taking the whole sound and moving it in space. What is happening here is that we are actually opening up the sound itself and putting you inside it, or you as a composer can say, I want the first oscillator to start in the back, like that. I want the second one to start in that side, so forth and so on. We will dig into it in a minute. But I just want to play you a few presets so you get an idea for what or how powerful this synth is, okay? That's one. Pretty cool, right? Maybe I like the sound. I want to create or change the movement. I can do that right here. Cool. So pretty exciting, right? So let's jump into the synth itself. I'm going to give a quick overview of the different tabs and what this synth can do. And then we will also do a quick run through the session just to give you an idea of what I've done here. So this is the very first tab, the main tab. You have all the presets, of course. You have the panel that we've created, which visualizes the oscillators. So the synth has 8 oscillators per note, okay? This is crucial. So if you play 10 notes, you get 80 particles in a 3-dimensional space, even if you're using stereo. This is also very important. You might want to start writing something in stereo, and next year you might want to release that in 5.1 or Dolby Atmos. All you have to do is change the instance and just switch the format. That's how easy it is. And because since you created everything in 3D, there is no up mixing involved, okay? So this is where the presets happen. That's the panel. We have sub presets, meaning each of these tabs, in addition to the main tab, this is where you have the main preset, right? In addition to that, each of these tabs, you can actually save a different preset just for the filters, for example. Or you found a very cool movement that you want to save in the spatial list, you can do that. So in the main page, you can cycle through them or basically turn them off if you wanted to try a few things, right? So this page is very surface level, in a very quick way, you can actually get inspired and create music. Next comes the oscillators tab. So like I said, you get 8 oscillators per note. You have all the usual suspects, all these sources for your oscillators. You also have modifiers including wave folding. So if you're using a sine wave or square wave, of course, you can actually do wave folding. You can adjust the gain, octave transpose, detune. Again, all the usual things you would expect to see in the oscillator page. Like I said, you can save presets just for that tab. You can also go deeper per oscillator and change things in this page. You get an envelope generator per oscillator and in any format that you choose to have it. So you can choose to have a bit of hold, decay, sustain, so forth and so on. You also get an LFO that you can use to change your oscillator, including depth. You can sync it to your BPM so it actually sounds a bit more musical. All the changes, you can change the depth, the delay, and also change the phase. If you actually enable the global setting, what that does is it actually aligns the start of all the oscillators globally. So that's the oscillator page. Next comes the filter page, right? So this is pretty cool because one, you can have a global filter for all 8 oscillators. You can choose between any of these options, which I think is pretty cool and exciting. You can also do -6, -12, all the way to -48 if you want to do something extreme like that. We have keyboard mapping built in along with velocity mapping. So imagine you're playing something and depending on the velocity, the filter changes. You also get an envelope generator for your filter in any of these flavors. Again, you also get LFO and you can change or sync or move it from global and change the depth to your heart's content and tweak it. Now this was a global oscillator, right? If you want to really go deep, you can actually do a filter per oscillator. How cool is that? Right? So you can actually really go in and fine tune and shape the sounds you're trying to create. So that was the oscillator tab. And we thought, hey, we should also add FM synthesis. So ta-da, we have FM synthesis built in into SkyDust. So you can choose to use any of these oscillators to modulate something else, right? So I can say I want oscillator 7 to be modulating oscillator number 2. and maybe I also want to hear it. So you can actually choose to output an oscillator or not, right? So again, it's completely flexible to your creative inspirations. You come up with an idea, you can create it very highly likely. The next one is the pitch tab. This is pretty cool. Again, just like the other tabs I showed you, you can either have a global pitch setting or you can go oscillator by oscillator. So the deep note I played you earlier is a very good example. When I play the note, you will see the pitch is actually going to start at 0, then come slowly to the value because we have a random behavior built in. Pretty cool if you ask me. So if you look at the graph now, you will see it in action. Pretty brilliant, right? So that's the oscillator page. As you can see here, you can actually tweak every single oscillator, and keep in mind that is just for one note. So when you play 10 notes, you get 80 of those oscillators. Moving in three-dimensional space, no matter which format you choose, you can work in stereo, binaural, multiple flavors of stereo, or 5-1, 7-1, 7-1-2, 11-1-8, ambisonics all the way up to 6th order, depending on which DAW you are using. Next comes the most exciting tab, spatial tab. So you can choose an envelope generator, of course. You can say, I want the oscillators 4 to start here, and I want some randomness. What this slider does is, instead of every time that oscillator starting that exact spot, it is going to add some randomness. So it will be in that area. And if you go all the way, it's going to randomly start anywhere in space, which is a pretty cool organic way to create sounds. So you can use an envelope generator and say, I want to start there. Let me turn down. And then I want it to attack to that side, then decay for a bit, and the sustain should be in the back, and the relay should be in the front. This is per oscillator, right? And of course, you can sync it to BPM. And another cool thing is, if you want to be a bit more organic and natural, you can actually choose movement modifiers and say, I want it to start in that area, right, with some randomness. Then I want it to go towards the back as it moves. And when I let go, you can either say it should land at a specific position, maybe with some randomness, or when I take the finger off, it should go in circles, for example. And you can also add azimuth and elevation as well. So this tab is very powerful when you create brand new sounds, right? So even in this example, and like I said earlier, let's say you like the sound, you want to try a few other different spatial things, you can actually just keep trying different presets. Now that's all in the front. Let me choose a different preset so you can hear some of the presets too. Let's try evolving pad. So remember, I can change the presets here, or I can change it here. The same thing, right? Let's try something else. And the cool thing is, once you like something, you can always go in and tweak it and then save it as your own preset. That's what makes this synth really unique and powerful. Remember, we built our own 3D engine into this synth. That's historic. And 2, we give you all this flexibility to make things move. So that's pretty cool in itself, but I have something else pretty cool. Arpeggiator tab. Of course, you can have an arpeggiator with all the things you would expect to see. We also have a sequencer, which again, I'm pretty sure you expected to see a sequencer in the synth, but we took it to a different level. So one, as you can tell, you can have a keyboard. You don't have to, but of course you can have a keyboard. It can be a mono keyboard, a pitch bar, or a poly keyboard, right? We thought, why not? You can also force a scale. So if you chose C major, for example, and you had the key A pressed, you will actually hear A minor, so it sounds more musical. Of course, you can easily add more steps, and you can go multiple pages, right? So it just keeps adding pages depending on how you want to do it. And you can choose your grid. Now, here's where the magic really begins to happen. Of course, you can arpeggiate or sequence notes, but you can also use the sequencer to sequence bam, boom. How cool is that? So you can actually say, I want the sound to be here on the first step, and then here on the second step, here on the third step towards the sender with some divergence on the fourth step, so forth and so on. And if that is not good enough, guess what? You can actually sequence pretty much any parameter you want. So the gain of oscillator 1, sure, you can do that. You want to change the filter resonance in time with music, yes you can. Any of these parameters, and as you just noticed, you can either do that globally for all oscillators or one oscillator at a time. You can go as deep or as surface level as you want to. So all these parameters can be added to the sequencer. I personally think that's just pretty cool and mind-blowing and immensely inspiring. So that was the arpeggiator tab. Again, keep in mind, if you did something pretty cool that you want to save, you can save it as a preset and then come back to it, use it on a different patch. We also have effects built in, right? A delay, a bit crusher, distortion, equalizer, and reverb. Keep in mind, if you actually open up a multi-channel instance of the plugin, which I'm about to do, you will notice the effects are also in that specific format. So in this instance, I'm using it as a 702 instance because I believe I'm using a broken harpsichord. I didn't want it to create any sub. I would synthesize that myself in the backend. So I'm using a 702, and all the effects I added are also in that width. And the next tab is the extras. So remember, you got all those LFOs and envelope generators per tab. We thought, hey, we should give you 8 more envelope generators and 8 more LFOs that you can pretty much assign to any parameter that you want. This is in addition to the other, what you have in the other tabs. Pretty cool, right? So that was the extras tab. Then comes the matrix tab. So let's choose another random preset. It's pretty cool, right? It's wobbling back and forth, sounds nice, but I want it to react more to me, okay? So this is where the matrix comes into play. So in this side tab, you actually have keyboard, of course, right? A mixer, which allows you to mix things very quick. And the next one is another powerful tool that we have built in is the macros. So you have 4 knobs that can be assigned to anything. I believe this is now assigned to modulation, right? So you can actually see my modulation wheel is assigned to macro A. I can of course change it to macro B. You get the idea. It's pretty straightforward. So let me put that back to macro A. So right now it's controlling oscillator modifier 6, 1, and frequency for all. Let's see how that sounds like. Okay, that's nice, but I also want my modulation to move the height. Or you know what? Let's do something even more cool. Let's add a new modifier. I'm actually going to say set because I want the next parameter to control the height in space. So I'm actually going to go crazy and say I want aftertouch to control the height, right? Elevation of all the oscillators. So when I press the keys and I press it down firmly, I want the pads to rise to the ceiling, and then when I let go, I want it to come down. Let's see if it works. How cool is that, right? So remember, if I don't have that enabled, that's how it behaves. It just stays in one plane. But the moment I turn on aftertouch, depending on how I press down on the keys, it's actually reacting to me. And keep in mind, you can add multiple parameters to the same aftertouch, for example, right? So I can say aftertouch also controls filter frequency, for example, right? You can also change how much it affects by just tweaking the graph. This is immensely powerful. I can't begin to tell you how powerful this feature is. And another great thing about the macro remember, you can add things in this tab or simply go here and say this knob should control arpeggiator rate and something else. I'm just adding random stuff at this point. Phase of LFO. As you just noticed, it can control not just 5 but multiple pages of parameters, and each of them will also show up here. So you can filter and say, I want to see what MIDI is controlling or what LFOs are controlling. You can actually look at what is controlling spatial stuff by filtering it, or you can see all your macros, so to speak, showing up here. So again, this is just a few minutes of an overview of a very, very powerful synth that we have made here at Sound Particles. You also get two pads. You can assign pretty much any parameter to them and just use your mouse to move it while you play, right? And then you also have a snap time, so when you let go, it actually snaps back based on that time. So that is pretty much a quick overview of the synth, but one thing I forgot to show you is another cool feature, which is a randomizer. So when you hit this button, it will actually roll the dice and give you either it will choose a random preset or it will actually choose a random sound. And let's imagine you have something and you like the pitch of it. You can say, don't touch the pitch anymore and don't touch the timbre either. I just roll the dice on spatial and arpeggiator. So it will only shuffle those settings. It's a very good way to draw inspiration, right? So this is the 3D synth that we made, and the settings tab. For those of you who might ask, hey, can I tune this to a different frequency? Yes, you can. What's a polyphony? You can go all the way up to 256. Keep in mind, every single note you play is going to create 8 particles or 8 oscillators in 3-dimensional space. You can also change your MIDI settings, pitch bend range, and keep in mind you can even assign pitch bend to some other parameters using the macro as well. For those of you who might be deep into binaural, just so you know, we support all the standard industry standard HRTF datasets, and you can choose your favorite subject if you feel like you connect well with one of those heads. And then if you are fortunate enough to have your own software file, you can also import your software file. So that was the overview. Now let's take a quick look at what I've done here in the session. So I have a kick drum that's clearly in stereo. I'm just going to solo it so you can hear what's happening here. Pretty straightforward, right? I'm just using 3 oscillators. Spatially, I'm not doing much. I just want them to be in the front, right? It's a kick drum, nothing fancy. I have a hi-hat, I believe. Let's see. Let me make it bigger. Right, so I have a hi-hat that I want to have some movement. So I'm actually using brightness spanner, which is a plugin we make. So I have the synth simply outputting a steady pulse, and I thought I want this sound to change or pan based on frequency. So I have this. So what is happening here is brightness spanner, for those of you who don't know what it is a dynamic or reactive panning plugin. It pans based on frequency. So I am setting the frequency to be between 500 and 20K. So whenever the brightness goes above that frequency, which it does in this case, it starts panning. And this speed determines how fast it should move. And of course I have a dry wet set as well. This is a very cool plugin. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. It can pan based on pitch, brightness, or MIDI. I won't go too deep into the plugin today, but maybe we will do another webinar if there's interest on our plugins. So I have the brightness panel to add some movement to that hi-hat. And another thing I noticed was the hi-hat was a bit too sharp for my ears. It sounded like this. So I threw in another plugin we make called Air. This is a very simple plugin that simulates distance. So here's the difference. Right, it's very subtle, but it takes that needle-like effect from the sound and makes it feel like it's 270 feet away from me. And I thought, hey, while I'm at it, might as well make it sound like it's Cape Town in spring. So yeah, air is another plugin we make that allows you to simulate distances, and it also allows you to change the temperature and humidity of the place you're trying to simulate. So check it out. Those are the two plugins I used on that track. And then I have the snare. I'm again doing a stereo instance of the plugin, of the synth, right? Let me make that one bigger as well. So that's what the synth is producing. So as you noticed, I want it to be, the snare to be slightly moving, but without too much distraction. So what I have done is that I've actually added some randomness to all the three oscillators that I'm using. So see, with each hit, the timbre of the snare is actually slightly different, and this really helps the brain hook. When a sound is steady and static, our brain is like, let's just ignore it. But when you have that small movement, our brain is like, yo, that sounds more musical, as if someone is really playing the snare, because it's very rare that a musician hits the exact same spot on a snare with every single hit. And by adding that small spatial randomness, I am still telling the synth, hey, I want you to create the snare in the front. I don't want anything crazy, but add some randomness to it. And look at that. Pretty brilliant, right? And then I felt it was not thick enough, so I'm actually using density, which is a plugin that we make. What it does, it allows you to create different modules. So the first module is creating 10 voices without changing any pitch. Then I'm creating one particle with one octave down, and let's hear the difference. See, it adds that body to the snare. And again, I think I've done a terrible job. I'm pretty sure most of you can do a fantastic, better job than that. But you get the idea. These are plugins that are really fine, that allows you to add so much of finesse to your sounds when you do right level. So that was Density and SkyDust. What's in the next track? Let's take a look. Yes, so I want to add a bit of movement in the back. So I'm actually using this track in a 7/0. So I don't want any subsonic frequencies coming from this track. So that's what's going on in there. And I'm using just the first oscillator. So that's why it's creating it in the back, but with some randomness. If I reduce the randomness, it's going to be exactly in the same spot and extremely boring, if you ask me. So I have that randomness right here. Cool. So before I forget, you might be wondering, I have all these instances of SkyDust and all these plugins. What does a CPU hit look like? Look at that. I'm using a laptop. I'm running Zoom. I'm running Pro Tools, all these plugins, and here we go. I think it was averaging at what, 28, 27%. So, and this is a MacBook Pro. It's not even a super powerful computer or anything. So the fact is, you can right now get this synth and start creating music in Spatial without having to worry about too much technical or financial things. So this is a very affordable way to get started in Spatial music production. So we just went through the drum folder. The next one I have is a pulse. Let's see what that sounds like and what it looks like. Let's go to the main tab. Yeah, it's just adding a pulse to it. I'm just doing some spatial panning in here. I'm assuming it's probably a bit tough to hear this over Zoom. So let's move to the next track. So I have the lead going on in here. So this one I literally just chose one of the places and just played it. And one thing I want to do was I want to add a bit of panning to it based on when it's playing. So I actually threw in Space Controller, which is a plugin we make. So it has a companion app, and what it allows you to do is you can actually pan using your phone. So I can actually spin the sound around, or I can say I want to place it in a specific part of the room. You can point it to the ceiling and say I want to be up there, or to the left, or to the right. Or even if you're working in stereo, this is key. But in this case, I want to add a bit of a twist to the lead. So without touching the lead, I wanted to just kind of move it in space while it's playing. See, I can do that with my eyes closed. That's a cool thing about this is you can actually close your eyes and focus on the sound and move sounds in a three-dimensional space, even if it's left and right. Remember, one of the questions I usually get is, okay, 3D is in this cool, but I only have 2 speakers. Yes, it might not be spatial, but the space between 2 speakers is still space. So you can actually say oscillator 1 should start on the left, oscillator 2 should start in the right, oscillator 4 should start maybe somewhere 3/4. You get the idea. Space can be 2-dimensional too sometimes, and that's a great way to start. Even if you are only using stereo, even plugins like Space Controller, Energy Panner, Brightness Panner, of course SkyDust is a great way to get started into spatial music. Remember, binaural is getting better and better, and we actually make a very good binaural that is built into the synth. Again, don't take my word for it, and download the demo, try it out for yourself. So that was the lead. The next one is a pad I have here. Let's take a listen. So I really like this patch. I don't think I tweaked it at all. But one thing I felt is that it's too big, right? It's actually taking up the whole space. It's like it's the lead itself that when I was playing the lead, when I don't have the energy panel, I'm going to show you what I'm doing there, but when I don't have the energy panel, it felt like the synth is in all the speakers or all over my headphones, and it's fighting against the lead. So I wanted a way to make the pad react to the lead. How do we do that? Well, remember the energy panel I showed you a moment ago? Let me actually open both so you guys can see what I'm doing here. So I actually inserted the energy panel on the pad, okay, right after the synth. Sorry, I meant synth. And then what I'm doing is I am sending the lead as a send, and I'm using that as a side chain inside the plugin. So remember, like I mentioned earlier, Energy Panner is a plugin that's actually, I did not mention this earlier, my bad. I mentioned Brightness Panner, that was panning based on frequency. Energy Panner is the sister product to that plugin, which pans based on loudness. Okay, so if I don't have sidechain, what will happen is when I play the pad, it's starting at the speakers. As it gets louder, it's coming towards the point I chose, right? Or I can even have it go in circles if I wanted to, like that. It actually slides. You can choose different paths. But what I want to do here, remember my initial reaction to the synth, the pad, was that it was too big. It was filling up the whole space. I wanted to do this only when the lead is playing. That's why I'm actually using sidechain. So now every time the lead is played. So remember, this energy panel is actually on the pad, not on the lead. But when I play the lead, it's reacting to that. So now when the lead is playing, the pad is actually just coming off the speakers, becoming a bit smaller, and then going back open and full again when the lead stops playing. This is amazing. So think about it. The music is reacting to each other. The lead is making the pad react. And if I kill the lead, the pad opens up again. This is the kind of stuff that really excites me, right? Because you can actually have a vocal that's actually making the pad react. So whenever the vocalist gets really loud, the pad can open up or close, or it can start moving. That's another thing you can do, right? You can trigger the movement or panning based on brightness or loudness, and then add it to an amazing synth like SkyDust, or you get magic. And keep in mind, this is a very brand new synth, so the sooner the better for you to get your hands on and create some amazing stuff before everyone else starts doing that. Which reminds me, like Katrina said, we do have a surprise slash gift for joining us, a discount code for all of you. But before we get to that, I also want to give a quick shout out to our flagship software, which is called Sound Particles, right? So like I mentioned in the beginning, the company is named after this software. This is how the journey began. The company is based in Portugal, in Leiria. That's where we are headquartered. Sound Particles is a CGI-like software to create thousands or millions of sound effects, right? So again, if you have not heard about Sound Particles, you surely have, more than likely, heard Sound Particles in action if you've experienced any of these movies. The example I have here is trying to create a stadium full of people, right? So I have 5 or 6 tracks. I have a whistle track where I have source files, just 8 source files. So this is one source file. And I'm telling the track, hey, create 50 particles, okay? So forth and so on. And then, just like with the synth, we have a virtual mic thrown in wherever you want to. So I can have an Atmos mic in the center, I can have a stereo mic in the back, and you can have multiple formats in the same session, and you get something like this. Pretty cool, right? So yes, this is a sound design centric application. It's a standalone application, right? Called Sound Particles. But one thing I want to point out to the musicians in this group, which I know there's many, is that you can actually have an audio modifier and say, okay, I want 10,000 particles in space using maybe a guitar sound that you might have imported or a vocal sound. Then you can actually say, come and add an audio modifier. And if you go to pitch distribution, instead of saying the value should be between -5 and +5, you can type in semitones and say, okay, I want it to be between an octave down, 7 semitones up, 5 semitones down. You can create harmonies of hundreds or thousands of particles. So yes, there is also a musical application if you want to create very dense pads or synthetic textures. Check out Sound Particles. There's also a demo available on the website. So with that, I think we have pretty much come to the end of the webinar. I will ask my colleague Joao to help me with some Q&A that might be worth getting a shout out.
Sure thing. Hi there, guys. So I think I can answer just one question first, because there were some recurring questions regarding the output format that the SkyDust is using. So basically, if your DAW supports a certain output format, most likely SkyDust will also support it. There are a few exceptions, like in the Steinberg DAWs, Nuendo and Cubase, we are not supporting the 9.x.x formats. So the 9 formats are not being supported because the 9 format of Steinberg is a peculiar one. We are still developing to get it done too, but in every other DAW, if it supports a format, we also support it. The other exception is Ableton, which is just a stereo mono track layout, but we created a way of using it in multi-channel layouts too. So there's a section on our manual to explain exactly how to set up a multi-channel format on Ableton.
That's a good point. I want to add something to that, Joao. So let's imagine your main DAW is Ableton Live or any other DAW that only does stereo. Keep in mind, this synth is still 3D in stereo, right? So everything you create, even in a stereo instance like this one, is made in 3D. So if point being, if you create something on a stereo DAW, it's not stuck there in format. You can save it as a preset, bring it over to a machine or a rig in a different application or different DAW, and then open it up in a different format. So whatever preset you created in stereo still has all that spatial goodness saved up in the preset. So don't forget that.
Yeah, exactly. Another question. Someone asked if it's Apple Silicon native. I don't know if you want to answer, Tony.
Go for it. Go for it.
So it is Apple Silicon native. So what else? Someone asked which DAWs support 3D audio. As far as I'm concerned, both Steinberg DAWs, so Nuendo and Cubase, Reaper, Pro Tools, Logic.
Yes.
Ableton with this workaround can support it too. I think that, let me think. Okay, I don't remember much more. I don't know if you want to add something, Tony.
Possible. Well, one thing I want to point out is spatial is still a blurry word in the audio world, right?
Yeah.
Keep in mind, binaural is also spatial, and that only needs 2 channels of audio, right?
Yeah.
So traditionally, you would think you only have 2 channels, that's stereo, yes, but binaural, look it up if you're not familiar. It's how you perceive 3D using headphones. So yes, just to reiterate what Joao said, most DAWs support spatial. One thing to clarify is, in case there's any Dolby Atmos mixers in the group, we do not support objects for the very simple reason that, if you have one track, you're playing 10 notes, you have 80 objects or 80 particles. And that's one reason why we have the 3D engine built into the synth itself. And like I was showing you earlier, even with this many instances, you are hitting 30% on a laptop. So our plugin, our synth is very well optimized, and we are making it even better on a daily basis. So yes, coming back to the question, most DAW support spatial audio, and as long as it does stereo, we can give you binaural. So you're good.
So I think the last question might be, we also have a lot of people that asking if this will be available as a recorded Zoom. I'm pretty sure it is. So in the future, stay tuned. This will be recorded. And I would also say, if you have any other questions that you want to make and you didn't make, you can also send your emails to our Sound Particles QA. I will most likely be the guy answering you. So just send your emails and with your questions, and I will be available to answer to them all with no problem.
Perfect. I think with that, we should possibly get Katerina to do the announcement of the winner, and also to offer our gift to everyone who took the time to join us. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Hi again. Hope you all had an amazing time here with our one and only Tony Joy, and João Franco, and Dan, of course, is at the backstage answering all your questions. And the winner of our amazing giveaway is, a little bit drums, Nick Mustaza. I will get in touch with you tomorrow by email, okay? So don't worry. And the thing that you all want to hear, our special discount code is BS30. I will drop it in on chat, don't worry. It's on every single product except subscriptions, of course. You can enter at our website, soundparticles.com, and explore all of our products. You can use it the way you want to. You can buy it in SkyDust, you can buy it Energy Panner or Brightness Panner. It's all up to you, but you have only until the end of the month. So hurry up, don't miss your turn, okay? And that's it.
That's
Anybody
cool.
wants to add anything?
Listen, well, I'm surprised because I thought the discount code was only for SkyDust, but looks like there's more surprises there. So wow, good to know. Everyone gets 30 that extra discount on all the plugins, of course, except subscriptions. So yeah, if you like the panel collection, we actually have a bundle of just the panels if you like them. We also have a spatial music bundle which pairs really well with SkyDust because it comes with the space controller app I was showing you, and the panels as well. So and the density too, of course. Dan, did you have any questions that you wanted to share?
Yeah, thanks for the great presentation, Tony. It was awesome.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, I think most of the questions were answered. Maybe one last thing that some people might want to know would be the differences between the two versions, because we have the multi-channel version and the stereo version, and in the stereo version we also have different output possibilities. So maybe
Right.
this would...
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. So yes, the only difference is the output number of channels, right? So on the stereo version, you're limited to 2 channels, which, like I said, still means you will get binaural. So if you're someone who's exclusively working in stereo at home and you only want to use headphones and 2 speakers, that would be a good way to get started. Absolutely. Other than that, there is no other difference. It's exactly the same. With the other version, you get all the multi-channel options, including quad, which is another thing I will quickly mention. When people talk about spatial, I think people think it's either I have to spend as money as worth buying a new car on getting 12 speakers and 2 subs and interface. Yes, that is good and great, but you can also, if you have an additional pair of monitors, put them in the back, try a quad setup to dip your toes in spatial. And again, we support either LRCS or Quad or 4.0 as well. So that's a good way to get started. Even if you are working only in stereo right now, you have additional speakers, experiment. And like Dan said, we have 2 versions, a stereo and a 3D. Both are 3D. The only difference is the number of output channels.
Perfect.
All right then. So I think that's it. We are about approaching 15 minutes. So thank you everyone once again. We're really happy for your support and your excitement. Be in touch. Let us know if you have any feedback or thoughts. We are a small company. We are a startup and we thrive on feedback. So keep them coming. And yeah, use the discount code. It's once again, it's BS as in best service and 30 is the code. And you get that discount on all the products. How exciting is that? Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.